Oh, and she's home.
All right, good morning. I'm Susie Lusk with the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We appreciate you all joining us today. Today's like I said, the last of a three-part series that we have offered from Steve, but we hope to look to offer some more topics come this summer. But I want to introduce our speaker, Steve Hawkins. He's currently the Vice President of FDR Safety. He began his employment with FDR in March of 2020. But Steve previously served as the Deputy Commissioner of the Tennessee Labor and Workforce Development as the Assistant Commissioner for Tennessee OSHA for 7 years. In his role as Deputy Commissioner, he managed Tennessee OSHA, the state unemployment insurance system, and the Workplace Regulation and Compliance Division. Prior to joining FDR Safety, he began his career with the Tennessee Department of Labor in 1986 as Occupational Safety Specialist in Tennessee OSHA. He was promoted to Area Office Safety Supervisor, Safety Compliance Manager, Assistant Administrator, Assistant Commissioner, and most recently, the Deputy Commissioner of the department. I will turn it over to Steve Hawkins, and we appreciate you.
Okay, thank you, Susie. Let me share my screen. And I think everyone can see that, right?
Perfect.
And I think I can advance it from right here. I'm getting better at this. So appreciate everyone who joined the call. I especially appreciate the opportunity to make the presentation. Appreciate all the folks at the chamber and the good work that they've done. Known Bradley for a long time, and you know that having that representation really makes a difference. And so just want to thank the chamber for the opportunity, and also to offer myself to anyone on the phone, if I can do, or on the Zoom call here, if I can do anything to help you, feel free to give me a call. I will provide my cell phone number. I will be the first one to say it's been a difficult transition for me to go from working for Tennessee OSHA for 32 years and then a short stint as deputy commissioner and then into the private sector. I was telling Susie before the call, I don't really think it's the transition. I think it's the pandemic, because I really like to help people and I like to talk to people, and now you're stuck at home and you're not supposed to talk to anybody. If you do, you can't hear what they're saying and they can't hear you. So, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. For me, I'm scheduled to get my shot on Friday. So I'm looking forward to things getting back to the normal. We're trying to have the Tennessee Safety Conference. We're very hopeful that we're going to be able to pull that off in person. So if you haven't considered signing up for that, I wish you would. And then as far as today goes, so the title of the program was 5 Things You Can Do to Improve Safety and Health Now in Your Workplace. So I looked at that, started working on it, of course, and made the title up before I started working on it, which that's not necessarily a good idea, but I will tell you that. So I came up with a whole lot more than 5. So I decided to make this pick 5 things. So we're going to talk about several things that are kind of the state of the art, kind of what the buzz is right now in this industry of safety and health and managing safety and health. And so I've got several things to talk about this morning, and you pick out 1, 2, or none of them. But I do want to give you some things to think about. And also, again, if anything in this presentation, you just want to ask me a question, when we're finished, just pick up the phone and call me. One of the reasons that I agreed to go to work for Fred Ryan at FDR Safety is because he said you can help anybody that you want to. And I don't necessarily care if they're a client or not. If you can help somebody, you help them. So when he told me that seemed a lot like something I wanted to do. So again, if anything, if you just want more information or say, Steve, where'd you get this information, or where can I get more? I'd like for you to call me. So let's talk again. And I know several people on this call were on the last call when he talked about transforming your safety culture. And I tried hard to make this not a repeat of that, but of course there is some overlap. But when we're talking about kind of the benefits of creating a positive safety culture, and again, we talked about this last time, safety culture is like a thermometer on the wall. So if you're uncomfortable with the temperature in the room, you can't do anything to the thermometer, right? So your culture is like the thermometer. It's where you are. And so you do things to move the thermometer, right? You open a window, you close a window, you turn the heat up, you turn it down, you turn on the air conditioner, you turn on the heat. You do something to change the temperature in the room. Your culture is the temperature in the room. You can't change it. You have to change something else to make that thermometer move. And so when you're thinking about culture, you're talking about creating a positive one, you're talking about moving it. If we want to think about culture as heat, and let's say if we're going to make it warmer in here, we've got to put in weather stripping, and we got to be sure all our windows are closed, and we got to get an efficient heat source, and we got to turn the heat up. We're going to do some things to change, right? We're going to talk about some things that can change and move that needle. So, you know, the big thing I think, several things about the culture, and then we'll move on. But the thing I think most about culture is that it's the thing that can help you weather an upset condition. It can help you weather new management. If you've got a really good, robust, well-established safety culture that's positive, you get new management, they can't screw it up, right? It'll take them a long time to screw it up. Chances are they'll be gone before it gets screwed up. It can help you weather new employees. When you onboard new employees, it teaches them where they fit in. And just in general, a positive safety culture, a robust safety culture can help you weather change. And so, you know, when I think about culture, it's the thing that keeps something little from screwing everything up. But if you have a weak safety culture, it's not a positive safety culture. New management comes in, they can drive it completely in the ground, right? You get two new employees in a small group, and they can change the dynamic. And so, the thing about culture, it's hard to change. The good thing about culture, it's hard to change. The bad thing about culture, it's hard to change. But once you get it changed, and once you establish this new culture and improve your culture, make changes that improve the culture, it can really pay dividends. And I really do believe that. And that transcends OSHA compliance. You know, Susie and Carolyn are still putting on all the classes about how to comply with a specific TOSHA standard. And you need that too. You've got to have both of these things, right? But we're going to focus more on things that are not OSHA compliance related. So 2 words that I think are key is consistency and devotion. I kind of came up with devotion after some of the things that I've read. That's kind of a strange word for something like this, right? But to make a change in your safety culture, you have to be devoted. And that means you have to, you know what devotion looks like, right? If you say some of my friends are Catholic, and they might say so-and-so is a devout Catholic. What does that mean? They go to every service, every time. They read their Bible every week. They try to do what they're learning. They try to apply it, and they're there every week. They're consistent and they're devoted. So if you're going to make a change in your safety culture, you're going to try to improve it, you're going to have to create a team that's devoted to that endeavor, right? And what does that mean? That means we show up at every meeting, we take it seriously. We don't cancel our safety meetings willy-nilly because something else came up and, oh, I'm busy and I'm the safety director, and it's the easiest thing for me to do is go to this other meeting. I'll just cancel the safety meeting for this week. In the early days of being the leader at Tennessee OSHA of about 100 people, I canceled a couple of staff meetings just like that because something came up and it was just easier to cancel them. And I didn't think it was a big deal, and I canceled it. And one of my employees, one of the managers, I say my employees, I don't even like saying that. One of the managers came to me and said, you know, I don't like what you're doing. I said, you don't? And of course, we'll talk about freedom to express yourself later in this presentation, but she felt like she was free to express herself. And if you're thinking it's Wendy Fisher, who's the leader now, it's not. But she said, I don't like what you're doing. I said, what? She said, you're canceling these staff meetings. You've done it 2 weeks in a row. I said, okay, what's your problem? And she said, well, you know, I put that on my calendar. I'm prepared for the meeting. I have all my stuff together to report, and then you cancel it. You do it two weeks in a row. It makes you think you don't care about what I have to say. And so I could tell you stories. I can tell you, really, I bet I could come up with 10 right now where over my career, people came to me and said, you're screwing up. And so I guess that'll tell you can be promoted and still screw up. Maybe that's the lesson to take away. But I'll tell you what I really think it says. I really think it says, and in the state, there's a lot of freedom to offer your opinion because of what used to be civil service, and there's still pretty good protections for employees who can express themselves. And so the reason that Sandy Bennett came and told me that, Susie, is just what I told you. She thought I was screwing up. She didn't like the fact that she was ready to go and I canceled the meeting 2 weeks in a row. And honestly, I took her at her word, and I really worked hard. If I did cancel it, I tried to cancel it several days in advance. And after what she said, I kind of took it to heart. So again, if you're going to make this change, you've got to be consistent and you got to be devoted. And I think we all kind of know what both of those words mean. And then the last bullet there, that in kind of preparing for this, you've got to use everybody's brain, which if you think of an umbrella, you want an umbrella big enough that you can get everybody under it. And so that means you are going to try to create a way for everybody to be included in the process, and you want everybody to get under the umbrella. If it's pouring down rain, if your umbrella is not big, you need to get a bigger umbrella, because you need to get everybody under your umbrella. And that would be the quote safety and health umbrella, because you want to use everybody's brain. Chances are they're not using it, so you might as well use it, right? You're paying them to come to work. In most cases, we're paying people to use their body. Let's get them to use their brain. Again, telling stories on myself several times. I thought I had something figured out, told the managers at Tosha, this is what I think we ought to do. And one of them comes back in my office later and says, that's not the best choice. Here's what I think the best choice is. And it would be like touching an electric fence. You couldn't believe it. You're like, wow, that's right. That's twice as good as what I thought we should do. And then I would do that. And so, and certainly I do not hold myself up to be a model leader in any way, but I did really think it was cool that people would bring you ideas and they'd be better than your own. And then I realized that collectively, you got 12 people in the room, you need to use everybody's brain. Some people you have to beg. Sometimes I'd call people out, say, so-and-so, what do you think? Because they wouldn't talk. Well, sometimes they give us a real gift, right? They'd have an idea. So you almost have to beg for it. So let's talk about some things we think we can do. Maybe before we go to that slide, these are just the benefits, just some of them that I, added to this presentation of what the benefits of a safe workplace are. I think we're starting to, in the last 10 years, and we'll do so even more in the next 10 years, society's going to expect that employers provide a safe workplace, and they're not going to accept it if you don't. There's all kind of, and it's rough and it's ugly and it's abrasive and it's not fun and it's uncomfortable. But when you make change, and there's a lot of changes going on in society right now, right? Where we're not accepting the norm and we're making changes. And this is just going to be another one where society expects us to provide a safe workplace. And then absolutely increased production, increased profits, raises and maintains morale. We all know that. And the last one there, maintains and builds a company's reputation. So let's talk about increases production. I was fortunate last week, or unfortunate, whichever way you want to look at it, of going to a client's work site and spending about 7 days helping them investigate a fatality. That fatality had shut down all of the production at this facility for what amounted to almost 2 weeks. And they had about, in that particular site, probably 60 to 70 people who were coming to work every day for 2 weeks, getting paid, doing minor little stuff, because production was down until we completed an in-depth investigation of this fatality. And so it could have been a serious injury. I hate terribly that it was a fatality. It was not a comfortable thing to investigate. But we're going to talk about that. We got a slide about that. But certainly that hurts the company reputation. I will also tell you that during the 2 weeks that I was involved with this, 3 key people resigned. 3 key workers, a couple of them were workers, one of them was a management guy, but 3 people that had a lot of experience that really knew how to do this job, and several other jobs at this facility, all resigned. And most likely the person who was immediately involved with the fatality that was also there present, I'm almost sure that he'll ultimately resign. You're going to lose 4 key people. And certainly that hurts your ability to be productive and to make a profit. And it absolutely hurts the company reputation. All the signs that you've got about your encouragement signs about how safety is a value, and then you have fatality, it calls all that into question. So just some things to think about there. I include these because I think it's important to take these to the people that you work for and remind them this is why we need to spend this money or these resources to make our workplace safer, because here's the things that we can benefit from, right? Because everybody doesn't know this. Okay, so let's start down the list of things we could do. And if you want to pick 5 or pick one, honestly, I got to thinking this morning when I was putting the final touches, if you just pick one thing off of this and you say, you know, that's a good idea, I think we'll focus on that in the next quarter or in the next 6 months or year, then it's probably worth everybody's time, including mine, to talk about it. So first bullet I've got, or the first point, is to provide access to information. Now, for sure, if there was ever a time we can say we live in the information age, it's now, right? So I'm 58 years old. So we all grew up when technology was nothing like this was, right? Just like all generations. The most thing you had at my house from a technology standpoint was a telephone, a television that received 2 channels because we lived behind a hill and we couldn't get channel 2. And we had a set of encyclopedias. And so you went and pulled that book, and I did when I was a kid, spent a lot of time looking at that book and reading about stuff that, you know, was completely unrelated to probably what I was supposed to be doing. But when you got ready to write a report for school in the 3rd grade, you went and got your encyclopedias. My grandmother called them the Funkin' Wagnalls, and I always thought that was pretty funny because it sure sounded like something she shouldn't have been saying. So, but you went and pulled the encyclopedia and you wrote about it. Well, yesterday I was trying to use a flashlight that I got for Christmas. I couldn't get it to work. I typed my problem in and there was 3 videos on YouTube telling me what the problem was. And literally it was just the fact that one switch wouldn't work unless you screwed the top on all the way. Top was a little bit loose, tightened it down, the flashlight worked. Solved the whole thing. Not, you know, that was not in the Encyclopedia Britannicas that we had at our house, right? So say all that to say this: provide information, access to information to all of your employees. If they all have internet access or intranet access, set up a shared drive and put it all there. Make it read only. Make information readily available, like all of your written programs. All the written programs, you've got them electronically. Make them where everybody can see them. At least they'll know you have them, right? And if you happen to be out of the office the day that OSHA shows up and asks for these written programs, there'll be a whole lot of people that know where they are, because it always makes everybody look bad if you say, where's your hazard communication program? And they say, well, Susie Lusk is our safety and health manager and she's on vacation, so we don't know. That says something, right? So make it all readily available. Make the written policies, any manuals you have, all the SDS is readily available for your chemicals that you might have present, whatever your training programs are. Your near miss or incident results, those reports, make all that stuff available to everybody so they can see it. That's hard to do, you know. Transparency, there's lots of talk about transparency. We all kind of talk about it's a good thing, but mostly we just believe in transparency if we're trying to see somebody else's stuff. We don't necessarily believe in it if somebody's trying to see ours, right? So I kind of watched that whole evolution when I was with the state of how we made more and more information available, and really it's at the end, in the end, it's powerful. So make that information readily available to your employees because there's power in it. Then the last bullet is, when you're talking about information, we talked about this last time, is you just have to train everybody. You have to train your employees. You have to train new hires. You have to train when things change. You should have an ongoing, constant, consistent, regular, frequent training program where you're constantly training employees about safety and health, because you can't assume that anybody knows anything at this point, right? They don't. And the more you learn, certainly the more that you train, the more people learn and retain, and they apply. And one of the cool things I think about training is, if you do a good job with it, some of the subjects are also things they can take home with them. And so I know some companies that say, we have this PPE We have gloves and glasses and hearing protection. And they say, we want you to take this home to your family. We're going to supply it for work and for home. So if you need 3 pair of safety glasses for everybody at your house, including yourself, take these home. Take the hearing protection home. Take these work gloves home. Because, I mean, if you've ever managed very many people, they're going to take that stuff home anyway. So you might as well offer it to them so they don't feel guilty about it, right? But you want people to take what they learn at work about being safe home with them. And so I actually had one, I was talking to one of our clients about that, and he goes, why would I want that? I said, well, what happens if they get hurt at work? Well, they're not here to do the job. I said, okay, what happens if they get hurt at home? Do they come to work if they get hurt at home? No. So it's the same thing, right? So access to information and provide training so that people have knowledge of why they're doing what you're asking them to do. So what about this one? This is a change that's coming. We might as well talk about it, and that is to reward safe behavior. Find ways, small ways. Everybody knows it doesn't have to be significant. People will do almost anything for nothing, right? So if we tell Carolyn tomorrow we're going to be giving away a TCCI mug for everybody who gives blood this month, she'll run and give blood. If it's who's going to get their vaccine, we're going to recognize everybody who goes ahead and gets their vaccine. She'll go get her vaccine so she can get the mug. It's a mug that costs $3, right? So we know that it doesn't take much to get us to do things. So find ways to reward employees for following policies, procedures, using PPE, whatever it is. Find a way to encourage them to do it and give them incentives. And then my second bullet, and I said this last time, I'm going to say it again. Be very, very cautious about rewarding employees for low injury rates. So the sign that says we've gone 1 year without a lost time, and we're going to reward everybody in the facility with a cap or a jacket or something to, if we make it to no recordable injuries or no days away or whatever the rate is that you decide to focus on, you need to be cautious about rewarding that. And I will say the bullet says OSHA already takes a dim view of that, and it's going to get more in the next couple of years, maybe to the point that they may even write a rule. I don't know. But I do know that the people who do the best job, the VPP sites all across the US, no one can be in the VPP program if they have a reward program for low injury rates. They can't participate. It's one of the conditions of participation. And so we had that in Tennessee. We went to some of the VPP sites, one in particular I remember very well, and the general manager was adamant that we were wrong, that OSHA was wrong, that he knew his employees would report an injury, even if it was minor, and that this bonus that they had, this recognition program and bonus that they had, wouldn't keep them reporting. So then he did a blind survey of his employees, and like 25% of the people said they would not report a minor injury or a near miss if it thought it was going to knock everybody out of their bonus, that they would take care of it themselves. He was shocked, but to his credit, he said, "You're right. It looks like I'm wrong. We're going to change this." And they made it a positive observation. They found other ways to report, to reward people for safe behavior, following policies, wearing PPE, those kind of things, instead of just rewarding people for achieving an injury rate goal. So something to think about. My whole goal here for this hour that we got is just to give you some things to think about and maybe implement, maybe not, or maybe tweak with what you already have. So just right along with that same thought, change how you measure safety. So first bullet, creating an effective safety culture. You need to address the ways safety incidents are measured, and incident rates are just one of many factors that you can measure. We know that, right? There's lots of other things to measure. So instead, measure how well you complete all the safety checklists. Are you completing 100% of the pre-operation checklist that's done before you operate a fork truck? Are we going to do 100% of those? Are we going to measure how, if we do regular audits in the workplace, how productive those are? What are the results of those? Are we going to measure that? Are we going to measure the percent of training that's created? And I'm not talking about mandatory OSHA training. I'm talking about if we decide to do some kind of training on safety awareness, are we going to measure that? Are we going to measure how many people are wearing PPE at work? I've got a typo there, sorry. How frequently is everyone wearing PPE? Did we go a whole quarter and we saw no one that didn't have on their safety glasses in the plant, or no one that wasn't using hearing protection? So there's lots of other things to measure besides just the thing that the government says you have to measure, right? It's funny that OSHA says you have to measure this, and then they say you can't reward people for it. But the whole OSHA 300 log thing is, I don't want to say it's out of control, but because that's not the right term, but it's not being used for what it was intended for, really. The whole thought behind the OSHA 300 log was really so that you kept a log of injuries so you could develop trends. The real purpose for you is to use that log to develop trends. Most of us keep it because we think OSHA or TOSHA is going to ask for it. We just want to be sure that we've got it. And if we get requested to participate in the BLS survey every year, we'll have all the information. That's mostly why we keep it. But you should be doing deeper work than that to try to develop trends from that information. Okay, lastly, considering implementing programs that focus on behavior, like behavior-based safety observation programs. There's a lot of them out there. I'm not going to tell you which one I think is good or bad, but I do think it's really important that if you do bring in a program like BBS or an observation program, it's not a substitute for managing safety, and it's not a substitute for complying with the OSHA standards. I said this last time, those are foundation issues. You got to get the minimums done. You got to be sure that you have all the required programs in place and that you're managing safety. And then you put behavior-based safety and observations on top of that. So many people think I'll do this and that's all I have to do. And it's not. You got to build the foundation first. Okay, so just kind of continuing the thought of what's the things I can do. This is our pick 5, right? This one looks incredibly self-serving, and I apologize. I don't mean it that way. But bring in outside occupational safety and health professionals. And you don't have to call me. I'm not saying that for 1 second, but I am saying this. You can bring in people from the outside with specialized expertise, and they can help you with special problems. So if you've got PSM issues or you have an industrial hygiene issue that you need addressed, bring in an outside professional, and you get a fresh perspective on the workplace, and you don't have to hire those people. You can use them one time for what you need them, and then you get your report and you start to implement those things, and they go about their merry way, and you pay your bill and you're done. And so if you think I'm doing this for selfish reasons, the last bullet says, and I absolutely mean this, use the Tennessee OSHA consultation program. It's excellent. There's no direct cost to you. And if they can get to you and give you the expertise that you need, you should use them. You know, the middle bullet there, you can also bring in occupational or physical therapists to help you improve office and workplace area ergonomics. Nobody talks about ergonomics anymore because Congress killed the ergonomic standard when it came out in the final days of Bill Clinton's administration. It's never come back up because it's very difficult from a regulatory standpoint. But that doesn't mean we stick our heads in the sand and pretend like ergonomics is not an issue. It's a frontier where you can make real gains from a safety and health standpoint and reduce repetitive motion injuries. So just because OSHA doesn't have a standard for it doesn't mean it's not a thing, right? So again, if you're trying to pick 5 things you can do, pick an area that you're really struggling with, some industrial hygiene exposure. Maybe you've got noise is high in your workplace. Maybe you're not sure what you're doing about PSM is right. Bring in outside experts and let them help you with that. Because safety and health continues to get more complicated, more sophisticated, and it really requires specialized knowledge in many cases. So what about the next one? Take steps to either create or improve your communication as it relates to safety and health. The number 1 bullet, and again, I told you the story about the lady who I worked with who called me down for canceling those meetings. Number 1 bullet, assure employees are comfortable with raising safety and health issues that may have been missed. This is hard. This is really, really hard to do. It's hard to make people comfortable. And then once you do, you're stuck with the results. I get all that. Um, I told my wife, she asked me, she was working for a plastic bag manufacturer in Tennessee, and they asked her to help with their safety program or do their safety program. I'm pretty sure because she was married to me, or they wouldn't have asked her. And I told her, I said, well, create a way for people to report unsafe conditions, and then use those and create action lists and take steps. Well, I think about the third day she came home, she was pretty mad at me. She said, I've got 3 pages. What in the world am I going to do with 3 pages? And some of this stuff is crazy stuff. It's going to be crazy stuff. But what you get with the crazies is you get some really good stuff that you don't know about, and it's up to you to wade through it. I'll readily admit, if you really encourage people to raise safety and health issues, you're going to get some wacky stuff, right? And you just got to wade through that, because you're going to get some good stuff too that people know about that you don't know about. And you don't have the ability to know about it. They're going to give it to you. They're going to give it to you free. Well, I say free. It's not free because the payment is to wade through the crazies, and you're going to have them. So maintain communication skills, make it comfortable for people and easy for people to raise safety and health issues to you. Employees have to feel like there's a way for them to resolve issues freely, openly, and easily. So I would say to avoid a cumbersome process, make it easy, but don't be sure that when you make it easy for them to report it, but you have to have a way to track it. So you got to have a reporting system, a way to track it, and a way to close that loop that the hazard's been addressed and changes have been made, or it's been reviewed and changes are not needed. But you do have to have a tracking system. And then the third bullet there, encourage employees to make suggestions on how to improve safety and health, or creative safety and health tips. If they've got ideas, you see a lot of creative work going on in places that are trying to do a good job with safety and health. Even I've seen people take home poster board and ask their kids to make a poster about safety and health in the workplace, about wearing glasses. So here's all this artwork on the wall in the break room where people's children, young children, have created posters and drawings. Anything just to keep this constantly flowing. And then do this, when you establish this, do it on a regular basis, right? Establish a regular time, a frequent and regular time where you're going to communicate with safety. If it's Safety Fridays, if it's Safety Tuesdays, some way where you're sending some kind of message every week. Now, that all comes with challenges, because you don't want it to be like the cartoon. I can't remember. I think it was Peanuts, where it's just blah, 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 right? It's that same old thing. I carried my little nephew home one time when he was 3 years old, and he said, Uncle Steve, he says Uncle Fat Boy. He says, Uncle Fat Boy, I don't want to go back in there, into his house. I said, why not, Connor? Because he says it's just going to be another grilled cheese and blah, 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 blah. Never will forget it. So you don't want safety to become, like Connor said, it's just another grilled cheese and blah, 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 right? So you got to keep it fresh. And that means to keep it fresh, you got to open it up to the people that work for you and have some creativity, get the juices flowing from a creative standpoint, and keep it at the forefront. Okay, what else can we do? Clarify, and for some of us that would be to further clarify and define safety and health responsibilities. Define responsibilities at every level and in each department of your organization. Include goals, policies, and plans for safety that would affect your safety culture, right? So that's not well stated there in that last bullet, because we don't do it for safety culture. We do it to change safety culture. I feel like pushing escape and fixing that. I'm sorry. So define safety responsibilities for the employee doing the work, for their supervisor, for the manager, for the vice president, for the CEO, the CFO. Include everybody and give everybody responsibilities. That's not just responsibilities for complying with what the rules are, but make a rank and file person, make a new person responsible for doing the monthly fire extinguisher checks and checking them off. Farm some of this stuff out. Don't be the person who says, I got to keep it all because I want everybody to know I'm the safety manager and I'm going to do it all. Farm this stuff out and get everybody involved, right? You see churches, the ones that are most successful, the ones that give everybody a job. It's not the ones that hold all the jobs for the few people. It's the one who tries to spread the responsibilities out to everybody. And that'll work for safety and health too. Okay, so let's talk about accountability a little bit. This is one of the ones that you picked to work on. It's a good one. Establish accountability for every, missing a Y there, every level and every layer of your organization. So everyone has a responsibility, and we hold everyone accountable for their responsibility. Now, we always think when we say holding people accountable, it always has a negative connotation, right? But it doesn't have to. Holding people accountable, there's ways to do that, with a positive message just as well as there is for a negative message. So establish what accountability is, which that means if we're going to farm down checking all the fire extinguishers in one area of the building to an hourly person whose normal job is to operate a machine, but they're going to do this once a month and they're going to spend an hour checking the fire extinguishers for you. That promotes safety and health in the workplace. You just have to hold them accountable. And I say that by being, if you don't have the results on your desk by the second day of the next month, whenever they're supposed to do it, you're going to hold them accountable. You're not going to just slough it off or give it to somebody else. You're going to give it meaning by holding them accountable. Create the clear expectation. I need the results of this on my desk by the second day after the end of the month. Measure and track their performance. How well are they doing whatever it is that you're asking them to do? And create an accountability program, that holds everyone that you can assign responsibilities to from a safety and health standpoint, hold everyone accountable for their performance. And again, the last bullet, and I've already said it, is we're not talking about accountability for following the rules. We're talking about steps we can take in the workplace to make it safer, farming those out to the lowest level that we can possibly farm it out to, and then holding people accountable for what you ask them to do, right? We're not talking about accountability for following the rules. You have to do that too, but we're talking about accountability for implementation of what we're going to do to make safety and health better in our facility. So another thing you can look at fine tuning is establishing a safety hierarchy, where you're going to provide a structure that holds leaders at the very highest level, all the way down to the managers, supervisors, mid-level managers, all the way down to the entry-level employee responsible for safety and health, and hold those managers and supervisors and all the way up to the CEO responsible for responding to employees' concerns. And so if you have an employee that raises a safety or health concern to their manager, we need to be sure that the manager is responding, right? So you got to hold them accountable for that. And then a hierarchy for where it goes from there. You have to assure that everyone knows who's accountable for which issues and in which department. So I have to know, if I work in stamping and I have a safety concern, I should know who I'm supposed to take that to, right? And if I take it to my supervisor, for God's sakes, the supervisor can't say, that's not my job. Take it to Susie. She's our safety and health manager. You have to be, we already know this, everybody knows this, you push that accountability down to the lowest possible level. That means the supervisor and the manager is responsible for safety and health and assuring that, execution is occurring like it's supposed to, not the safety manager. Safety manager needs to be a resource. They can be held accountable for that too. But the first line supervisor is the person who can do the most to affect change, because they're right there every day. And it has to be one of their responsibilities, just like quality and production is. And again, we've already said this, but spread responsibilities as widely as possible. I actually saw that. I didn't make this stuff up. I've seen this. And again, the example with the fire extinguishers, they had a press operator who once a month, he started his press operation an hour early or an hour late. He started an hour late because his first hour on the last day of the month was to check all the fire extinguishers and turn in that card. And that was part of the safety and health of the facility that he was able to own. So again, spread those responsibilities as widely and as deeply in the organization as you can. Okay, I love this slide. If I was going to pick one, and I would probably pick this as one of my top 5, and that is to encourage and in the parentheses beg, and I mean beg for people to report. And you've got to emphasize to everyone how important it is to report a near miss, a first aid injury, even if it's a bandage on a cut, right? Let's say I think my little scar is gone. It's barely still there on my finger. Because about a week ago, my wife said it's time to cut another country ham. So her father cures hams in Hickman County, and they hang outside in the smokehouse for 3 years, the ones I like. So 2 or 3 years, this ham is hanging in a smokehouse outside, whether it's 90 degrees or 2 degrees, it's hanging out there, and then we cut it. The problem with leaving it for 2 or 3 years is it gets really hard. When it's really hard, it's hard to cut. I don't take it to the store, try to cut it. I've decided that it tastes best if you cut it off the bone with a knife, right? You leave the bone. So I'm doing it. And of course, I'm right-handed, which means my left hand is scarred. And I was cutting the ham, and the knife slipped off a little bit, and it nicked my finger, and it bled. So I wrapped a bandage around it, and I put a rubber glove on it so it wouldn't get blood on the country ham, and I continued to cut it. So if I worked at a plant who processed country hams that way, I would report that to my manager. And then my manager would say, hey, we need a cut-resistant glove for the other hand that holds the ham. Now, I'm ashamed to say that I own a cut-resistant a cut-resistant glove, and I should have had it on. As a matter of fact, I took my latex gloved hand and went and got the dang thing out of the drawer and put it on and finished cutting the ham. But maybe we didn't know when I reported that cut that we had those, or maybe we went and looked and we were out of them. And so you see how it was super minor. I'm telling you, it healed up in less than a week. The little scar is gone. There was a little scar there for a few days, and it's gone. But you see how minor that is. But I could have cut that thing to the bone. I could have cut a tendon, and I could have been walking around with my finger hanging like this because the tendon's cut in half and I can't raise it, right? Saw my dad do that one time when I was a kid on a joiner in his shop. And I thought it was really cool because I was 14 years old and I got to drive him to the hospital to get it stitched up. So, but not to get off the subject, but a minor injury like that, you want them to report that. So if you have a minor cut, you want that, and you're going to beg for people to do it. Please report near misses. Please report an injury, no matter how minor it is. Not because you're going to do something to me, but because you want to know about it. Because if we had those gloves, but turns out we're out of them, that may have been why I wasn't wearing it. Or maybe we didn't even know they exist and we go look. It turns out you can buy a Kevlar glove for about $10. And unless the point of the knife goes through the weave of the glove, you won't cut yourself. So when you do this, if you haven't been doing it, you got to prepare for an increase in reporting. And then, so everybody all the way to the top has to understand that we're begging for this information. We're going to get more reports of minor injuries. So be prepared for that and be happy that you're getting them, because that's where you get your low hanging fruit, and it's free. They're going to bring it to you. You don't have to go do a JSA. They're going to bring you that near miss, and then you're going to be able to affect change. And then my last bullet, this is really my advice to you, is to investigate every incident or near miss to the same level had the most severe injury occurred. That means if it was a near miss death, where if this had went just a little bit differently, the person could have been killed, then that's going to take a major investigation, right? That's going to take a deep dive. If it's a minor injury, like I had this nick on my finger, this little cut on my finger, then no, you're probably going to finish that up and, it's going to be a 30-minute review or an hour-long review. But if it's a near miss where somebody could have lost a limb and amputation, we need to dig deeply on those. Which brings me to my next bullet for you to choose from, and that is to establish a robust system for investigating near miss and injury incidents. We used a system on this event that I was involved with called ICAM. It was actually created, I think, by an Australian firm, but it was a process to investigate a severe injury. They got to be done timely. You certainly can't put them off. The investigation should identify the immediate cause of the accident And let me tell you, it's never, almost never is the immediate cause the root cause, right? It almost never is. It wasn't in the case that I was involved in. The immediate cause, you said, well, look, this person made a mistake. That's the cause of the accident. The root cause is they didn't do X that they were supposed to do. It's never like that. When you get to that point, you figured out the immediate cause, that's where you start. And then what is the root cause? Is the root cause we didn't have protections in place in case the person did make a mistake, it would prevent the injury? Is the root cause the person wasn't well trained? Is the root cause that the machine that was involved wasn't being maintained properly? If that's it, do you stop there? Say, well, the problem is it wasn't being repaired, it wasn't being maintained properly. The brake was loose. Is that the problem? Then you go to maintenance and you find out why did that happen? And you keep going, you keep asking why, and you move way back from the immediate cause of the accident or the incident or the injury. And so when I say that, going back to the slide topic at the top, you have to establish a system. You need to get a standardized system. And there's lots of them out there. There's one a guy actually in Tennessee developed called Taproot. But there's lots of systems out there that you can follow, but you need a systematic approach to tease out all the root causes and just start out by saying it's never the immediate cause. The cause is not the person stuck their hand in there while the belt and pulley was moving. That's not the root cause. It's the immediate cause, but it's never the root cause. Because then you say, where's the guard? Oh, it turns out the guard was taken off. Well, how was the guard fastened? Was it fastened with screws and nuts, or was it just laying up there? If it was just laying up there, why do we allow that? How did that go undetected? And you have to move back. You have to move way back in time, and you move back from the immediate cause to tease out those root causes. And then the process should, of course, always result in some recommendation and changes. Not changes that address the immediate cause, but changes that address the root cause. Okay. And then they should be shared as soon as possible and as openly as possible while protecting the identities of the people involved. And that can be really tricky. I don't have good advice for you on that. My last bullet I do, though, and that is to avoid blame, but look for the root or systemic causes. Avoid blame. The incident that I was recently involved with, it would have been easy and simple and somewhat accurate to say the operator made a mistake. But then, luckily, because they were using this system, they didn't do that. And if I could tell you, and I can't tell you all about it, they teased out all kind of root causes that will really make a change. And the cool thing is they'll make changes everywhere. They won't just make changes to this one operation, but the root causes will make changes that go to all different parts of the facility. So again, if you're asking me ones that I would pick, if I picked my top 5, I would probably pick this one. If I don't have a good, solid, systemic way to investigate near misses, I would go looking for one. And I can't tell you how many sorry ones I have seen where it's just a one sheet of paper and employee has some crap on it about situational awareness, right? And if you're on this call and you've seen that, if you quit doing that, if that's what you've got. Root cause, employee was unaware of the situations or the surroundings, employee wasn't paying attention. Those are not root causes. And honestly, if that's all you're going to do, you probably should just pick something else off this list and do something else, because those are not root causes. You got to dig deeper to get those. Okay, got a couple more, and then I think we'll be wrapping up. And I just tried to advance my slide and it didn't work. There, maybe it's kind of loud. There we go. Okay, this really goes back to the slide that we talked about earlier. You could choose of these lists to focus on establishing an atmosphere of trust and creating that atmosphere of trust and improving it. And again, we've really already talked about this, a little bit redundant, but establishing trust can help pull ideas from everyone at the work site. So if you work in an area where there is mutual trust, that can pay dividends in spades, as we like to say, right? That can really make a difference if people feel free to come in and tell you, stop canceling the staff meeting every week. doesn't make me feel good about my job. Stop doing this. I think it's unsafe. If you create that atmosphere of trust, you can get some really great ideas for people who work there. And I put this is just my own personal opinion. Leading by example is a great place to start. If the plant manager, if the CEO walks out in the facility, even though the person has on a suit or business clothes, if they've got on all the same PPE that everybody else is wearing, it sends a huge message. And if it doesn't, that sends a huge message. You know, if you're trying to follow the Tennessee Non-Smoker Protection Act and the facility manager walks around with a cigarette in his hand, what is that sending, right? I've seen that. So lead by example is a great way to start in developing this atmosphere of trust we're talking about. We talked about the next one already. Take all ideas seriously and treat everyone with respect, even if they're crazy. Even if they bring up some bizarre thing that makes no sense, you have to treat them with respect and handle it, but you can't call them down and say, if you lost your mind, you're crazy. That's not going to make this any safer. You say, we'll look into that. Even though you probably won't, but you got to treat everybody respectfully. And then the next bullet, these skills are not innate, right? Being able to treat people with respect and pull these ideas and create this atmosphere is not something that's innate to most people. And so we don't think about it as being a safety and health issue. We think more about human resources and management, but it absolutely affects safety and health. And that is, you have to teach supervisors and managers leadership and soft skills because they're really important to the safety and health process. You can't have a jerk treating people badly, serving as a supervisor, and expect for safety and health to improve. If you're counting on them to help you implement, and you have to, first line supervisors, that's who you have to reach out to. If you're expecting that, you got to give them leadership training, because safety and health is leadership, just like productivity, just like it permeates all entities, right? Leadership does, and the like thereof can cause tremendous problems if you don't have good leadership all the way down to the supervisor level. And it's just not something that's innate for most people. You have to give them some kind of regular training to make them better leaders, and to teach them the soft skills of how to treat people. Most people don't really know that, right? And if you don't think, you can watch it. So I'm part of this little organization that's a club, really. And we've had board meetings lately, and I was amazed how hateful some of the people in this group were talking to each other. So much so that I got up and called them down and said, we can't have this. We can't talk to each other like this. And then one of my friends at the meeting said, Hawkins, we really appreciate the Rodney King speech. Can't we all just get along? But it is like that. You know, we all have to get along. And if you don't have that, you can't have this atmosphere of trust that gives you this dividends. So I would encourage you to integrate leadership training and soft skill training for managers, supervisors, and leaders as it relates to safety and health and all other aspects of the business. Okay, just got a couple more. Hold regularly scheduled meetings on safety and health in the workplace. Talk about injury prevention, refining the processes, improving safety and health, but do it on a regular set basis, just like I did my staff meetings, and don't cancel them. We talked about that already. Part of that regular schedule meeting we're going to review safety procedures, standards, not work standards, not OSHA standards, address other related information, whatever it takes to keep safety, and I didn't use that right, to keep safety culture, to keep safety on everyone's mind, not the culture. The culture is the result, but to keep safety and health on everyone's mind. Share ideas, share near miss reports. I've got a comma there, it can go on and on, but do it on a regular basis. So if you say this next quarter, this next year, this is going to be one of the top 5 things that I pick, we're going to do a better job with this. Okay, last bullet. I love this one. If you can't do anything else, improve your housekeeping. A cluttered, dirty workplace absolutely leads to avoidable accidents and injuries. every VPP site that Tennessee has, the 39, and I've been to all 39 of them. There may be more now since I've been gone for a year or two. But one thing they all share in common is they do a great job with housekeeping. Maintain clear aisles, keep the floors clean and dry, regularly inspect the workplace for dangerous items such as tangled cords, cables, disorganized tools, whatever. But do a good job with housekeeping. If you can't pick anything else off of what we talked about today, let's try to improve housekeeping. That room, that junk room that needs to be cleaned up, get it cleaned up. Everybody feels better, right? Everybody feels better. My dad is 80 years old, living at home by himself, barely have a caregiver, and the cleaning people come once a month. And I feel so much better when I walk in his house the day the cleaning people have been there, because everything is clean and straight. And then over the next 30 days, it ain't. But at least that one day it's clean and straight. So if you're talking about picking 5 things that you can do to make the workplace safer, that's a fine one to pick. Let's decide to focus on housekeeping this next quarter and clean this place up, get these leaks finished. Get these leaks repaired, get this floor cleaned up, keep it dry, keep it clean, and keep the clutter out. I know that sounds simple, and oversimplification. If you paid $35 for this seminar, or whatever you paid to listen, us talk about this together, that may be a little steep for cleaning up, but you got to clean up. It really does. It really does affect safety and health. If nothing else, it clears the clutter so you can see what the problems are. I said early on when I was making inspections for OSHA back in the early late 80s and in the 90s, you could do a better inspection if they had good housekeeping, because you could see where the problems were. I went in one place that honestly I was scared I wasn't going to get out of there alive. They'd had a fatality a couple of years before, and it was the most cluttered, junky place I had ever seen in my life. Still to this day, I can remember exactly what it looked like. You couldn't tell if the machines needed guarding because you couldn't hardly see the machines. So one of the few times that we cited housekeeping serious, and I actually had to go back a second day and take somebody with me. That's how bad it was, to try to wade through it to see what all the problems were. So that's the last slide I have. I will offer my, let's see, maybe this one's the last slide. This one just says, if we do all this thing, we'll take pride in safety and health, and that's what you want all your employees to do. When you do this well, the result is we take pride in being a safe workplace, and that becomes something that we are, and that's when you really achieve that positive safety culture. So if I can be of service to you, 615-218-9937 is my cell phone number. I don't mind if you call me at night or on the weekends. I don't care. If you just have a question, say, hey, I just want to ask you an OSHA question. From your days with OSHA, can you help me with this question? I'm happy to answer it. Again, 615-218-9937. And Susie, I think that wraps it up for me. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and give it back to you and Carolyn.
Great. Thank you so much, Steve. I've really enjoyed these past 3 offerings. I've learned so much and such good information. Let's see if we have anything in the chat while we still have you. Is it possible to get the copy of that PowerPoint? Are you okay?
Yeah, it is. I'll put it in a PDF and email it to you.
Okay, perfect. We'll get that to you. Any other questions while we have on the phone? Looks like we don't. It's right at 11, so we're right on time, and we appreciate everybody hopping on today, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. It's a beautiful day here in Nashville, and I hope it is where you are. But thanks for joining us today, and thank you, Steve.